Hi friends, it's Becky, and here is a video that's been a long time coming. I've been planning it, and then, I just didn't get around to starting it for a little while, but I am ready to sit down and paint some ballet dancers that are inspired by the paintings of Degas, and then make a ballet company of dancers out of the beads and findings that came in the Degas-inspired Jesse James Beads Magical Mystery Bead Box. And I have several different designs to share with you. We'll start with 6, and if we need more time for paint to dry, I do have a couple of other ideas that we can put together, but for the most part, I think we should be able to get it all done with these 6 designs and with the painting. So, the way that this usually works when I do my painting and jewelry making videos, which is a whole series that I do when I've been inspired by a jewelry box and I want to paint something to go with it, is there's always a part of watercolor painting that requires you to wait for the paint to dry. And so I keep my hands busy and my thoughts occupied by making jewelry while I wait. And if they are both inspired by the same thing, then they go together, and I just have a really wonderful time doing that and creating with it. And several of my friends have said that they love to watch these videos, that it's some of their favorite ones that I do. So I am happy to share this with you. So I've got, again, as I said, the Magical Mystery Bead Box from Jesse James Beads. If you want to see some of the other beads that were in that box, I will link to my unboxing in the description below. Also in the description will be links to all of the other materials that I'm using as well, and some descriptions, a link to some of Degas' paintings that you might be able to view at a museum site. I've got a link for that as well. If you're not as familiar with his paintings, he was an impressionist, so a lot of his paintings are not super detailed, but they give the impression of something. That's what it is. He painted a lot in either oil paints or in pastels. And so I toyed with the idea of doing this with pastels, but I think instead I am definitely going to use watercolor because it's just a really fun way to explore color and to be able to maybe give myself a little bit of an impressionist vibe without doing too many details, but still give a little bit of that with it. I'm going to be painting on this Bahang Academy 100% cotton. It is 10.2 by 7 inches. I have gone ahead and taped up about an inch on each side. This is a block, so it is bound on all 4 sides to keep the paper from buckling when you do that. So I'll be painting on this. I'm also going to be using, because I'm mostly going to be using wet on wet technique for my painting, so I don't need a ton of paint. So I'm going to use my little travel palette M-Gram palette because it gives me a pretty wide variety of colors. With the Degas box, we got some soft pastels, and we'll make some of these bright, vibrant colors a little more pastel by diluting it more in water. But I did want more than just the light green colors and the pink colors involved in this, so I am going to be using several of the colors in here for that. Also, since I'm going to be using a lot of wet on wet techniques, be using this size 3 Artegra round brush. It is just going to be dropping colors in to certain spots, and then a little bit of cleanup. I have a pencil for my sketching. And then after I am done with my additional paint and it's dried, I will be outlining some of the pieces with this Kuretake Mangaka Fine pen. It has a flexible nib, so I can do really fine light lines or increase the pressure to make thicker lines. It's really useful, especially when I do illustrative type paintings. The colors that I want to use, I wanted to do like a Roy G. Biv sort of thing on this. So you'll see when I get to it. So the colors that I'm using, let me just wet this paper a little bit so I can show you how it will drop into this. So for my colors, I'm going to be using this Pyrrole Red. I will be using Transparent Orange. I'll be using Lemon Yellow. I'll be using this green that is just a gorgeous Kelly green. I'll be using some ultramarine blue. I've got a really deep, moody Prussian blue for my indigo. And then this dioxazine violet for my violet shade. So that's going to be my backup dancers. And then for my main prima donna dancer, her tutu is going to have this gorgeous, gorgeous turquoise color. Like that. And then I'm going to use some of my earth tones in various mixes for skin and hair, etc. for my dancers. So that is what paint I'm going to be using. Let me move these aside and we'll go over materials for the jewelry making. So my first earring design that I wanted to make is this prima donna earring design, and to do that I'm using these filigree components and I'm just bending them down to make little curved flared skirts. In addition, we'll be using one of these rhinestone rondelles, large faceted bead for this middle that is going to be covered with a filigree bead cap, and then we'll top it off over here. Got a very tiny rhinestone rondelle, and then we'll top it off with this pink star cut faceted bead. And I just grabbed a little orange bead here to hold the end of a head pin, because otherwise the hole in the bottom or in these filigree pieces is a little too large for a head pin to be able to be stopped by it. So that bead is there just to stop it from doing that. And it's just a tiny bead that you're not really going to notice or see, just to stop that up there. So that's the first earring design that we're going to be using. The second one is using these swirly peach colored beads, the rose metal bead, and then just this clear one down under here. I've got a couple of bead caps and spacers, and then I used some 20 gauge copper wire to do another swirl because we are just pirouetting our way through this, my friends. So I've got those. Then let's see, which one are we going to do next? Let's do this one next. So for this one, I've got a faceted drop bead, 2 bead caps that I have layered together. We've got one of these drop beads I've turned upside down like that, and then another drop, but this faceted drop again, I'm turning it upside down up here on the head. So that is another one that we'll be doing when we get to that. And so what I'm going to be doing is probably do the initial painting part, and then we'll do 3 earrings, and then while that painting is drying, or yeah, we'll do that while the painting is drying, and then we'll do a second bunch of painting. So we'll do the skirts first, and then we'll do the arms and heads, and then after the arms and heads, when that's drying, that's when we'll make these next 3. And this is just layers and layers and layers of bead caps and then a little drop frilly drop down here at the end, one of these star cut beads with a couple of spacers in between. And this is just really exploding and exploring mixed metals because I had just about every color of metal on here. And that's why I've kind of mixed too the earring wires that I've gone and added just some copper ones or gold ones, however I'm feeling it. You know what I mean? So we'll do those that way. And then we've got this one here, and I'm just using some craft wire to make a little loop here with some of these rondelles and hex beads. And then they come together underneath this glass bead with the, it's kind of like a little skirt. I've got another rondelle and spacer, and then we've got these bicones up here at the top. Those are our 3. And then this last one, it's one of my favorites. I'm using this beautiful swirly filigree connector piece, and I've got a sparkly rhinestone bead, some sparkly rondelles, some disc spacers, and then down here at the bottom, we've got some of these rose spacers as well for a chandelier look. So that will be the last one. And if we need to spend more time waiting for stuff to dry, I pulled out some extra beads that we can just play with and design a little bit more on the fly designs. So, tools. Because I'm going to be doing quite a bit of wire working, my tools are going to be chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, and wire cutters. All right, let's move these guys aside and get my painting out, and we can start making art that goes on a wall. There we go. Now I've got my paint here. Got a couple of paper towels for drying my brush off. Got my water. And I have some tape on a little torn off piece of parchment paper because my masking fluid that I was going to be using is all dried up. I just peeled the little cover off of this and it is completely dried up. It absolutely won't work. It's brand new and it's dried up. So I don't know how long it was sitting in a warehouse, but it is not good anymore. So I'm going to make myself a masking sticker. And I'll do that by tracing the little shape that I want to cut out. I will cut it out with some scissors, and then I'll peel this off of the parchment paper. That's why I have it stuck to the parchment paper, is because it'll peel right off without affecting the adhesive on here. And this is just some of this Nitto soft tape. It's really great for masking because it comes off cleanly without tearing, but it still holds a little bit better on paper than washi tape does, because sometimes washi tape will let the water like kind of seep underneath. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to be doing, because for the most part I'm going to be borrowing some composition notes from Degas. I'm going to arrange my backup dancers just kind of in a curve along here, starting about a third down from there to about halfway down the page. And then I'm going to have my main dancer sort of here with her skirt around her. And because I'm going to be adding her head and arms in the midst of her skirt, I want to block out the part of my page where that's going to be, and that's why I want to mask that out. For these other ones, I'm going to be drawing the head and arms around the paint, so I'm not going to worry as much about masking anything on this end. This is going to be my rainbow, this is going to be my bright turquoise dress, and so we're going to have it like that. But I need to sketch the shapes that I want to mask out right here so that I can cut it out and have it masked. So that when I do my one-on-one technique, it will not get this. So I'm just going to, because this is dark enough for you to see on camera, I don't want it to be that dark when I paint over it. So I'm just going to roll across this with my kneadable eraser. That's just going to leave a little bit of pencil mark that I can see, but not enough that it will show through on the painting later, because watercolor is transparent, so pencil marks will show through. Let me grab my scissors real quick, cut out my little sticker. And I'm not going to be doing a lot of details. We're not going to have like individual fingers on her or anything like that. It's just going to be, you know, an impression of a hand. Right? Because number one, hands are hard to draw. And number two, we are doing it impressionist style. It's not too much, too far, probably. So now that I've got my little sticker, like I said, it comes right off the parchment paper. I can go ahead and apply my little sticker to the paper, and that's going to mask off that part of the paper while I do my wet on wet. Now this part, using the a spray bottle to kind of spray out a sploosh of water and then dropping some color into it. This is a little technique that I learned from watching a tutorial by Sarah Cray, where we also did a ballet dancer. And my sister, if you are watching this, will remember doing this with me because it was something that we painted together. So I'm going to be using this spray bottle to just kind of do a spray in the area that I want it to. I'm going to drop some water or some paint just a little bit, and then I'm going to leave it alone and let the paint travel as much as it wants to, go where it wants to, blend together as much as it wants to. I'm going to start with my rainbow here in the back. I'm going to do a smaller spritz. Well, I guess they're going to be bigger than I thought, but that's okay. That is perfectly fine. Because you know what? I'm just letting it do its thing. So let's again start with our Roy. Drop a little bit of pink back there. And then orange next to it. You see how it kind of explodes out from there? And our yellow. This is how I can control the size a little bit more. I can spread this yellow out so it's bigger. If they blend together while they are drying, that is fine. We will let them. Then our green. Blue. Indigo. Right up at the front, my violet. And there they go. They are blending right together. Absolutely adore that. Do you see them like swooshing? All right, now Let's spray here. For my dancer in the front. I've got some water beading up on my, there we go. Now I can drop this turquoise in. Let this do some traveling along that. For this ballet skirt. All right, so now comes the part where we let this dry. When it's dry, I'll remove my mask, and then I'll draw in heads and arms for my little ballerina in the back with my paint. I'm just putting my paint things to the side. I'm just giving you a close-up of those explosions of color that we've got going on back here. I love them. Oh, got some pooling. There you go. I love that. It's like a cloudy sky. All right, now let's do some jewelry making. There it is. This guy twirled right off my prima ballerina, twirled right off my mat. So this part is going to take a little bit of time because we're going to be bending these. I'm going to be holding on to and keeping steady this center portion, and then gently bending these down in here. Give it a little twist and bend like that. And do this one here. Bend down in, twist and bend on both sides of that. And then this one here. Going to twist and bend. Go in, twist and bend, and now I'm going to get these little sections that stick out on the other side. So that we can all go in. Go slow, otherwise you might break this. Don't bend it up and back, just go in the same direction that you were going in before. And this one we want to be bent further in than the others, so now you can use your fingers to get it in a little bit further, because it's the inner tulle skirt, and then we'll have the outer tulle skirt coming in afterwards. Like that. It's like a little table. Right, and then we go with the other one, and we're not going to bend it as far in for this one because we want it to stick out. We want to still be able to see the silver one under it. Just like the other, we go slow. There are 3 different colors of these filigree things, so you could do it with other colors too, or add a 3rd layer if you wanted. I didn't really feel like doing that much. It's too many. There we go. So that's our 2nd one. It's layered over the 1st. So now we just grab ourselves a head pin. Finally did what I said I was going to do and organized my head pins so that I could have them all ready to go. Let's see. How long does this one need to be? Yeah, that's about right, but I had it a little bit longer, and this one is, looks like I used this type of head pin for that one. There we go. So like I said, this hole, let me show you, it's way too big for the head pin to be stopped by it. So we got to put our little stopper bead right in there in the middle. It's going to be hidden by the skirt. So it doesn't really matter what bead you put in there as long as it's something that will keep that head pin from going through. All right, now next bit is our rondelle spacer right there. Then our sparkly giant sparkly bead. It's so pretty. Look at it sparkle. With this filigree bead cap right over the top. And then one of these teeny tiny rondelle spacers has the crystals around the edges. And finally, our sparkly pink bead right here on the top of this. Whoop, where are you going, buddy? All right, I'm just sticking my finger up underneath here to hold all of this together. I've got my finger up holding under it here. And I'm just going to bend this over the top of my bead like that so that I can make a simple loop. I like to measure from the bead to about here on my finger before I cut my wire. That gives me about the right amount of space to be able to make a simple loop with the remaining wire. Oh, that's too short for me to hold on to. So I'm just going to tip it towards the bead mat, and the bead mat will catch it when it goes flying. It's a little pro tip if you have not a lot of room to hold onto your wire when you go to snip it. Just tip it towards your bead mat. And then use your round nose pliers to roll that up into a simple loop. And then you can attach an ear wire. And these are just some of my ear wires that I've made previously. And now I have my Prima ballerina earrings. Aren't they beautiful? Look at them twirl. And now for the next one, we're going to be making a swirly head pin using some wire. I've got a daisy spacer and one of these like leaf bead caps. And these 3 beads here. I've got some 20 gauge antique copper colored craft wire right here. And I am going to make a little swirl with this. Just straighten this out. I want to pinch the end of this with my round nose pliers and curve it all the way around like that. And then keep it going. As I curve it, I'm kind of pressing very gently into my thumb. And I'm getting to the point where I cannot grasp it without pressing these parts together. So I'm going to switch to my chain nose pliers. And I'm going to hold on to this and just rotate it gently, gently. And when I've got about 3 rotations on my spiral, right there, I'm going to hold on to this here and just tip this backwards. That way we're going to make a little bit of a bend. Squish, squish, squish. And now I'm going to snip this off because that's my little head pin that I'm going to be stacking my swirly guys on. I'm going to start with this gold leafy bead cap. It's going to go right on top of this. And again, we are just celebrating the mixed metals with this because we've got rose gold, we have silver, we've got gold, we've got copper. We are just putting all of the metals on. We've got the yellow gold, we've got the light gold. Everything about this is different from the others. So once we've got that guy on, I'm going to put on my rose bead, and I'm just going to put that right through the middle. There isn't a specific one hole on this type of bead. There are several different places that you can enter and leave with this type of bead. So I just try to make sure that it's straight when it goes through and not off to the side. And then we've got our little daisy spacer. And then I'm going to top it. Oop, nope. Daisy spacer goes on top of my swirly bead. I love these little swirly beads. They are so pretty. We are just swirling around with this though. It is our twirly, twirly, swirly bead. And now I'm going to make a wrapped loop up here at the top, if I can. You know, I may not have cut enough wire to do a wrapped loop. So let's do a simple loop. This is okay. 20 gauge wire will hold a simple loop. This is 22 gauge wire. I would make myself another little swirl and try again. There we go. All right. We will be doing wrapped loops a little bit later with some of our other earrings though, so don't worry. We'll do all the techniques. All right. So here's our rosy swirly guys, all done. And then we've got one more to do. Actually, let's save this one for later. Let's do one that takes a little bit more time because we are still waiting for that paint to dry in the back there. So let's do this one because I need to make some dangles before I put them all together. And we can do some wrapped loops with this one. All right. So I'm going to be making the same dangles, 3 that are exactly the same, attaching them to my swirly filigree piece, and then we'll make a link with this guy up on top, and that will be the whole thing all together. So I need some head pins for that. Need 3 head pins, and then I'm also going to need some gold wire. So 1, 2, 3. And I'm starting with my roses. Then we've got our disc spacers and our super sparkly AB finish crystal beads here. And these all have simple loops. So I'm bending the wire over 90 degrees, measuring how much to cut off, holding on, and then we're rolling this up. And the simple loop is so that I can attach it directly to my piece there without too much fuss. So 1 dangle, let's do the other 2. So we've got time. That stuff is still very damp. The paint and the water. All right. More. So making this video, or starting to make it, has been a bit of a struggle for me. And I think it has to do with executive dysfunction. That's something that I didn't really know a lot about until I started looking into why so many things that people would talk about for ADHD resonated so much with me. And I figured out that I probably have it. And that is one of those situations where there's something you want to do, something you need to do, anything that, this is an enjoyable thing. I love doing it, but I just couldn't get started doing it. And every time I would even start thinking about it, like just the thoughts of it would just slip right out of my mind. Like it was covered in grease and it was just running through my fingers or something like that. And so that's why, even though I talked about it weeks ago, I'm just now getting around to making this, because it just was one of those things that, like, I wanted to do it and I enjoy doing it, but I just couldn't make myself even think about doing it. And I don't know if any of y'all struggle with that as well, but it is really hard to do sometimes. It's one of the reasons why, like, sometimes things that I need to do at work, like paperwork or documentation, it's something I'm good at. It's something I do, but like just sitting down and staring at a page, like my brain just goes immediately somewhere else. And a lot of times my, I guess you could call ADHD symptoms, that sort of thing, I could handle it and move past and just push through. I learned a lot of techniques to go through it because I was never diagnosed until like just maybe a year ago. But as I've proceeded through like my middle age, because that's where I'm at right now, I am in my late 40s. Like perimenopause apparently brings out the symptoms even more. So you might have been just fine with, the way your brain worked for a while and have little techniques that you figured out how to do that helped you go through this, but then suddenly those techniques aren't working anymore. And you're just more brain foggy than you were before. And it's just one of those things that I didn't realize that it was something that I would have to deal with, but I've been getting better at it and going through and doing something fun like this. It does help, but sometimes there's a struggle. And I think sometimes, especially as crafters, sometimes we might hit a roadblock where we're gonna go make something that we enjoy making, but we just can't. Like we get a block, some sort of creative block, and you're just, I want to make something, but you just stare at your beads and you can't. Or you're like, I'm going to make this, and you're like, I can't even start. And so it's something that I'm working on still, absolutely working on still. So I'm going to make my link right now. I went ahead and put my bead on here. It's still on my spool. I like to work from my spool when I do these links, because that way I don't waste too much wire, and I also don't spend a lot of time over or underestimating how much wire I need. So right there, about 2 inches from the end, I bent the wire back and then brought it around the front of my pliers. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this loop by pressing this wire around the neck of the wire with my fingers. You can use a second set of pliers if you would like to, if you don't have enough leverage, or if it hurts your fingers. It's not a problem. And then once I've got my bead up here, I measure from about 3 fingers down. And I'm going to want my loops to run perpendicular. So I'm going to turn this so that I can see the circle of this loop, not so it's turned away and it looks like a line, but turned towards me so it's a circle. And then I'm going to grasp my wire and bend that away from me so that I've got room to wrap over here on the bottom. And then right there for that loop, I'm going to push with my finger up over the top of my pliers, let up and swing it around so that we can continue with the wire all the way to the other side. So it crosses over like that. And before I wrap it, I'm going to see how it's like closed up like that. I'm going to swing it open. So now you can see there's a little bit of space in that loop. It's more spirally and not closed, so that I can get this attached to my loop. We can swing it closed. Yay! Hold on to your loop and push the end of this wire around until you get to your bead. Like that. And I'm just going to tuck the end of that wire in a little bit with my chain nose pliers. And now I can start attaching these guys onto here. So my attachment points, I'm going to use this section right here to attach, the middle, and then this section over here. I don't have any like exact 3 spaces across, so I'm using my best estimation for what will give me a centered drop in the middle like this, and then 2 sort of equidistant along the sides from each other. And to do this with the simple loops, you just swing it open like you do a jump ring. Put it through the hole if you can. Maybe swing it open a little bit more since this is pretty thick sections that I'm trying to go around. Right there. Perfect. And then you swing it back. And my next one is going to be right here in this section here. Yep, perfect. All right, so now I have my second earring for this pair. Oop. You know what I'm missing? An ear wire. That is exactly what I was missing. And I think my painting is just about dry. I'm gonna feel it real quick, and if it needs a little more time to dry, I'm gonna go grab some of those extra beads because I still want to do these 3 ones afterwards, or after we do our next part of the painting. But let me, there we go. Yes, we're facing front. I love those guys. Let's see how we are. I can still see a bit of warping. It still feels a little bit damp here. But look how those have blended together. It's sort of ethereal back there in the background. And so when I go through, I'm going to put like some heads and arms in here and then outline them with my liner. But I'm only going to outline like the feet and the arms and the head and not the tutus. Those are still going to keep their ethereal nature as we do that. I might actually add some splatters at the end of this as well. I love this tutu. Isn't that beautiful? That is so much fun. All right, friends. That's going to take just a little more time before we get to the next part. So I'm going to save these 3 up here for later, and let's do one with these. Actually, yes. Here we go. And we've got these like leafy bead cap areas. I grabbed a couple more of these light pink bicones. We've got these like floral bead caps. And then we've got these gold enamel flower beads. And then these guys right here. So I was thinking that I'd grab a head pin. No, let's do a different head pin. This is going to need to be long enough for that. But also, yes, those will be long enough. I want to keep some of that pinky vibe with these head pins, right? And I want a ball head pin because it's not going to have any other decoration or parts on the end of it. So we're going to stick that ball head pin right there at the bottom of this white drop. We're facing down. I'm going to put this bead cap over the top of it right there. We'll put this facing up the other way. And then to fill in the space right here between where this will sit, I'm going to drop that bicone right in there. So you've got a little peak of a sparkle in that space. And then I'm going to put this guy right in here on top of it. Oof, I just barely have enough room up here at the top of this to make myself a loop. So I'm going to bend that over, roll it up, and have myself a simple loop. On that bead cap. These are some pretty long 2-inch head pins, but even so, they are a little bit almost too short, but not quite too short for us on this. You know, these head pins would also make some really nice ear wires, I think. Why didn't I turn this into an ear wire? I'm going to take this and bend it back like that, just right around there. And then put this between these on the fat part of my round nose pliers. Bring that around here towards the front. Give this a little bit of a bend here. Like that. Gonna do a snip flush and grab a metal file just to file down the edges. You can also do this with a burr cup if you've got one. There we go. Now I've got a little ear wire. That I can swing open and then swing it closed. How fun is that? Okay, that's probably painted enough. I'll do the second one after, but there we go. We had a little bit of an extra earring in there. Let's move our jewelry making stuff out of the way. And get my paint back in front of us. All right. Now, using some yellow ochre as my base, I can add just a little touch of pink to it. And then we're going to maybe some brown. Go. Some hair. No. Face. Shoulders. Arm out this way. Let's get some brown for a hair right here. Little bun. We're just doing impressions of people. I'll draw the rest of the dress with the marker there. And maybe a little toe. That is not a little toe. Yeah, that will mix in with some splatters later. And then we'll have someone maybe with their back turned. I'm just making this up as I go. One arm up. And some darker hair. All right. I'm just trying to tone down this color here to make it less like orange by adding a tinge of a blue to it. There we go. That's going to be better. Just people in the background. And no, we don't have gray people. People aren't gray. No, that's too This is what I get for not having a Naples yellow. That's okay though. A little more in the distance there. Can't really tell who's back there and what they're doing. Her foot is somewhere in there. That's fine. All right. Their proportions may be a little off, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. That is a ridiculous foot. That was a ridiculous foot right there. All right, I'm going to peel off my sticker and work on this lady. Okay. That first one that I did was probably a good starting point. Again, a suggestion of an arm, a suggestion of a hand. All right. Then a little bit of hair color. Her head is facing down, so we can't see her face. So let's just add a little bit of shadow here. So that's the top of her head. A little bun on top, like that. Now, let's see if Becky can draw legs. She's going to have one leg behind her, like this. With shoe. Ooh, that is not the color I picked up. Maybe that'll work for a shoe. On point. And then one leg out in front. Let's get some of that shoe color out here. We will color in a little bit of this, and then I will do more detail work with those shoes with my marker when I come back. I just wanted to grab a little more of this blue right here. To get the front of that dress a little bit darker away from the rest of that tutu. There we go. All right, now this part needs to dry. So let's move our paint out of the way and get our jewelry making stuff back. All right, I have 3 more designs to share while that part is drying. It's not going to take as long for that part to dry. But we're still going to be using these same pieces of wire and a head pin for this one in order to make this. What is this one for? Why do I have an extra head pin? So for that one, might have been for that one, but I chose a different one instead. All right. Now, which one do I want to start with though? Why don't we do this one? Because it's just fun. We're just going to be stacking a whole bunch of twirly whirlies on here. Just a ton of twirly whirlies. And for this, I'm going to be using some wire. Let's see about that much. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off first because it's just going to be funner for stacking it on if I do it from the bottom up, and I want to get this attached to my little twirl at the bottom before I start stacking any of these other bits on. All right, so I've got the copper and rhinestone one, I've got the hematite spacer, I've got this little hematite guy here. I'm just going to spread these out a little bit more so that they are not, I'm not going to spread them out all the way, I'm just going to spread them out a little bit more. And this one in a little bit more, just to adjust so that when I layer them on, they're a little more layered skirty, if you know what I mean. That's not a word, but we're using it anyway. All right, so about 1/3 of the way through this, I'm going to do a wrapped loop, bend it back, bring it around, cross it over. Before I wrap it, I am going to hook it onto my drop. I believe the drop actually has a simple loop on it, so you can open and close it, but I don't feel like doing that. All right. There we go. This is going to be covered by all of these bead caps, so it doesn't need to be a really like neat looking loop or a neat looking wrap, because there we go, that's just covering the top of it. And then our gold guy in the middle, and then this one like that. Then we're going to have our sparkly rhinestones, and then our super sparkly jonquil colored bead. Then another one of these, and we'll do another wrapped loop right at the top of that. It does not matter which direction this loop goes, so I'm just gonna start making it. Okay. This one is a quick make. It's mostly just stacking up a whole bunch of stuff. To get some dangles and swirls, everything like that. And we can open up an ear wire. Again, leaning real hard into that mixed metals. And now we've got this one right here. So for this one, again, we're going to have some more stacked bead caps. We're going to start with one of these drops, and I'm pointing it down the other way. Sort of the way a foot looks when it is pointed out of a toe shoe. And this, I'm going to spread out a little bit more so that it flares wider. And then we're going to put on our copper bead cap over the top like that. And now we've got this guy. This really, really fun bead. And it's got multiple holes in it, so you could go in several different directions. But I wanted to have it standing on top of here. And then this drop bead, again, we're going to put the pointy end down and the fat part up at the top. And then bend this over the top. Gently, gently, so you don't crack the crystal. And it looks like I don't even need to snip any off of the end of this. I can just go ahead and roll this up with my round nose pliers to make a simple loop. Easy peasy. I can put a ear wire through that one. And that is this is the second to the last pair of earrings that I had planned. We could do another one after this if we need to, if my girls aren't done drying, but I think they will be because this one's going to take a little bit longer to do. And for this one, I have several of these star spacers, another one of the hematite spacers, and then 3 of these white faceted rondelles, and 2 of these mint green hexagonal beads. I still have another one of these light colored bicones, and these special ones, twirly whirly, and we're going to be using the antique copper wire again for this. I want to go, let's get about 6 to 7 inches of wire. Right. And then I'm going to about 1.5 inches away from there, just do a little bend like that. And that'll stop it from going off the end when I start stringing these guys on. I'll start with a white bead, a spacer, a hex bead, a spacer, a white bead, a spacer, that's not a spacer, that's a hex bead, a hex bead, a spacer, and then a white bead. I'm going to take this and gently curve it up. so that these two ends meet right there at the end. I'm going to curve this again this way. And then where these two meet, I'm pinching this to keep it round. And I'm just going to wrap this a couple of times. It doesn't need to be a bunch, just a couple, because it's going to be up underneath that other bead. So it won't even need to be visible. I'm going to take these two hex beads right here on the side, kind of pinch them together to make it a little more ovally and a little less round. Now that I've got this bit right here up the top, I will put this, I don't even know what you call this bead. It reminds me of jellyfish. I'm going to call it a jellyfish bead. I'm going to put that up over the top. I mean, it might just be a glass bead cap. I don't know. Oh, but where's my hematite spacer? There it is. The hematite spacer. And the crystal. There we go. Now I can do another loop up here. Another wrapped loop. Boom. Got some more earrings, and I think that stuff is dry enough that I can start adding in a little bit of sketchy details with my marker, and then we'll do a roundup of everything that we've made after I am done with that. But look at these guys, aren't they pretty? Love that, love that. In fact, since I don't have to get my paints out, let me just do my sketching with these guys right here. I can just put that right there. All right. Oh, I am going to want to get my paints out. Okay, look how we've got some of this blue paint went up the sides, so I can draw in dress details there. Not great with hands, so we're just gonna pretend that's a hand. We have a foot. And we're just gonna do a couple straps and wraps around that ankle. So that's ankle. And then this. Toe shoe. My hair a little bit more. Get a little outline of part of the face. These arms going that way. And now looking to the side, over here. And her hair in a bun. I just I don't, we don't know what's going on underneath this skirt. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. All right, and we've got the front of a dress. Some straps for that back. Back is lower in front, so let's do an outline of the bun because we're looking at the back of her head. For that one. Tinkerbell over here. Sweetheart neckline. So Degas was a little bit better than I am at drawing people, but I think he had a little more practice than I have had. I could probably use a little more practice. That's all right, though. Even the most club-footed person can dance if they want to. Splatters. I forgot about splatters. Let me move my bead mat out of the way because otherwise it's going to get splattered. Okay. Just tossed a bunch of stuff off of there. All right, let's get these splatters going. I'm just loading up my paint with, or my brush with some red paint. Let's get that splattered on there. And then let's load it up with some orange paint and a bunch of water. And more splatters. It's art. Let's get some yellow splatters. Yellow. Green. our Tinkle Bell. Some blue. You know what? My blue and my indigo ran together. So my next splatters are just going to be my violet. And now let's get some turquoise splatters. Oop, my brush is very wet. There we go. It's like confetti. So there we have a Degas-inspired painting, watercolors, some Degas-inspired earrings with Jesse James Beads Magical Mystery Bead Box, so many earrings. I like making earrings. It is so much fun. So much fun. And I finally did the thing that I've been wanting to do, but just haven't been able to make myself do for the last little while. And these guys just do not want to stay on there when I move it to the side. So let's get my little prima ballerinas back out here. Where did my other one go? Where'd you go, buddy? Oh, found it. Found it. All right, and I will be trying all of these on during my wrap up and chat video tonight. You might not see this until after that if you're watching it tomorrow, or just later in the week, or later in the month, or even a year later, because sometimes you get older content on YouTube, and that isn't a bad thing necessarily. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. If you would like to check out Jesse James Beads Magical Mystery Bead Box, I have a link in the description, and I have a little coupon code that you can use. It's Becky10. It'll give you $10 off of basically any purchase in the shop, but it'll also give you money off of your Magical Mystery Bead Box subscription. And then again, I've got links to the Engram paint, the Bao paper, and the Artegratia brushes that I've been using. And until next time, happy beading and happy painting.